What's up guys, welcome back to the video. So today we're going to be learning about useEffect hook in ReactJS. So let's get started. So useEffect hook is another hook in ReactJS. As we know, it allows us to perform side code or side effect in functional components. So as I said, only hooks were there in classes before, but now it can be available in functional components too. So this is another video of the hooks which I made a video on. As I said I'll make a video on almost all the hooks, and so yeah, I'm gonna be making all those as I said. So the reason why we are going to be using is to fetch data from an external source and updating the render content, and like whenever like something is updated in your web page or so, or in your website, it's gonna be basically called re-rendered or re-render. So yeah, that happens whenever you render. So yeah, and it's gonna be using for updating DOM elements after rendering, subscriptions, using timers, and also loggings, and many more. So yeah, that's the benefits of these. So let me go ahead and show you guys some more thing that you can do. So normally you can also perform something called cleanup code, which basically just says, like, if you have some garbage in your code, you can just use a cleanup code, and then you can just clean those up so that it doesn't cause any leakage or memory and stuff. So yeah, so that's why we use this useEffect. So I'm gonna be saying you guys the three things we're gonna be doing today. So these are the three syntax, or basically the three things we're going to be doing. useEffect. So this is going to be having any kind of like an arrow function, and then inside this we're going to be having some code. So like this. So we're going to be having code inside this right there. So this kind of format happens every re-render or whenever our website updates. So let's say I started the website, it renders because we need it's basically rendering because it's showing us all the elements. It's basically rendering. So that's what it basically happens right there. And the next thing is basically this kind of thing. It's kind of similar to this, but except it have like an area of list or so. So yeah, and remember, we don't have anything inside this. Trust me, we should not have anything inside this. And this happens once after we render. So this is not gonna happen like always. So if you have an on click or so, it doesn't happen, but it only happens once after the re-render. Basically, if you start the web page or your live deployment server, then it's gonna happen this. And now the last thing is this useEffect, but inside this thing or in this area of list, we're gonna be having value. So this value is going to be like, so let's say I'm making a count, it's going to be having count right there, like this. And yeah, but it depends so on what your value is. So this happens whenever the specific value changes, not all. And this happens whenever everything is re-rendering, or like whenever you re-render or like reload or click some button that doesn't even relate to this. It's gonna happen this thing right here, and you're gonna be understanding. I know it's kind of hard to understand, but yeah, it's fine. You guys can be understanding after I give the example. So let me go ahead and remove all the code, except I'm gonna keep this so that you guys can see. So now what I'm gonna be doing here is I'm gonna be having a functional component, since this is for function, and inside this component I'm gonna make a counter. Let me go ahead and spell this right real quick. Counter. And inside this counter I am gonna be having something like this. So yeah, first of all, what we need is a const. Basically, I'm gonna be using a useEffect. So let me go ahead and use useEffect. First of all, actually it's useState though. So first of all, let's go ahead and import our stuff right here. Import. Let me go ahead and do React. If you want, you can import React, but I'm gonna be just importing useState. There we go. And also our useEffect. And there we go. So the reason why we are using useState, so that like we update some stuff, and so yeah, since we are making a counter, we have to. And now what we're gonna be doing is something like this. So actually we should not do like that. So we're gonna be having, our first thing is gonna be count, and the next thing is gonna be set count. So there we go. And here we're gonna be having useState, and this initial value is gonna be 0, since we have to start with 0. And the next thing, so let me go ahead and have return right here. Let me go ahead and return, and I'm gonna be returning something like this. I'm gonna be having h2 tag so that you guys can see, and inside this h2 tag I'm gonna be having like something like this. So I'm gonna just have the count, I guess, maybe. So I'm gonna put the count, and it's gonna be the count. Let me access the count real quick. So since an object, I'm gonna be using these embed JavaScript thing. So yeah, And now what we can be doing is, that's pretty much it about that, I guess. And yeah, so now what we can be doing is we can have a button so that we can create some stuff. So I'm just going to be having a div tag since instead of a fragment. Let me go ahead and use a div tag right there. And let me align these so that it works pretty good. So there we go. So yeah, so we have everything done inside a div tag. So this div tag is gonna be basically just saying like, let's say increase. There we go, and this is gonna have an on click. So we're gonna have an event listener. Let me go to type on click. There we go. And this on click is basically gonna be, let's see, what it should be like. I'm gonna create the function name to be, we're gonna be using an arrow function first of all, and it's gonna be increase by 1, and that's the same example we did for useState if you remember. So yeah, and now what we can be doing is we can have a function increase by 1 increase. Let me copy this instead. Let me remove that and copy this and paste it right there, increase by 1, and this function is basically going to be changing the state or setting the state. So let me go ahead and put set state. There we go. Let me see. It's set count actually, not set state. So there we go. And the set count is gonna be the count plus 1. So let me go ahead and do count plus 1, and there we go. So now let me go ahead and see our live server real quick, or this thing right here. So let's see. Okay, we didn't access this right here. First of all, let me export this all. Export counter. Let me go ahead and do that. And here I'm gonna get my counter back, which I already had before. So yeah, there we go. So now let me go ahead and see what we did wrong. So export. Okay, we didn't use default right here. So let me go ahead and use default. Now that should work, I guess. So there we go. Our counter works. Count 0. If I click increase, nothing is happening. So let's see. Let me do this right there. So there we go. So now that works. Increase count. I can increase it how much ever I want. 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that works. But this is not use, what is this? useEffect, right? We're just performing useState. So to perform useEffect, basically the side code, what we can be doing is something like this. We're going to be having useEffect, and inside this we're going to be having this thing right here. So let me go ahead and have, first of all, this is going to happen every re-render. So let me go ahead and have the first re-render thing right here, and this is going to be doing like that, and this is going to be right there. So now inside this re-render, what I want to do is I want to change the title, let's say. So if you want, you can change a message or so if you want, but I'm going to change the title since it's already declared. And so I'm going to be changing the title to be what should we put? Like, let's go ahead and put something like this. Title, and actually let's go put count, and let me go ahead and do this right here inside this, and there we go. And this is going to be having plus count. So let me go ahead and do count. There we go. So now let me go ahead and reload this. So count is currently 0, if you guys can see right here. So the count is currently 0. So let me go show you guys real quick. I don't think so if this is gonna affect. So if you guys can see, that's pretty good. Count is 0 right now. So I can, if I increase this, it re-render the web page, and there we go. It's 1, basically deployment server though, and 2, 3, 4, 5, and so that works. So it happens every re-render. So now let's say I have something like this. So instead, I'm gonna be having a comma right here, and this is gonna happen every re-render. So I'm gonna be having a plain right there. So let me reload this. So let me go to console real quick. Let me go to console. There we go. And let me go to console. Yeah. So now if I increase by 1, let me go see this. So let me go and actually reload this. So yeah, so it doesn't give us anything right here, as you see, because it only happens once, because the re-render only happens once, as we know. So whenever we reload the web page or we started our deployment server, it's gonna be just showing us once right there. So it's not showing us right there. If you want, you can do console.log, and you can know that too. So that's how this thing works. And now let's say like the web page wanted to be re-rendered, like whenever I click only increase or something like that, or whenever the count is changed. So for that, we can use count. And if I use this, and it's gonna happen only whenever this thing is updated. But if I remove this, and if I have something like a button or so, let me go ahead and have a button so that I can show you guys. I'm gonna be having a button, and this button is not gonna be having any on click. I'm gonna be removing that. And if I click this button, see, as you see, it's not happening anything. So that's pretty much about useEffect. So normally I'm also want to include something, a syntax for this, like what is that thing called, like the cleanup code, I guess. So yeah, the cleanup code. So for this, it's only gonna work whenever you don't have any dependencies. So let's say I don't have these count and stuff. So these are basically called the dependencies, by the way. So these ones right here. And so normally it happens every re-render, the thing that we use. And then what you can be doing is you can have something like this, return an arrow function, and then you can be removing the stuff. So if you have an event handler, so like an event listener, you can use remove event listener or so. So yeah, so that's how you can do some cleanup code. So that's pretty much about useEffect. So that's it for today's video. See you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.